He spoke of women's ways, they trap you and they use you before you even know. For love is blind and you're far too kind, don't ever let it show. I wish that I knew what I know now. When I was younger, I wish that...
He's the grandfather of Birmingham County, James Cook! James Cook! James, your guests are here.
The visitors
They're here, mate. Yeah, they're here.
Don't you look like my grandson? Before you go, I've got to, for the visitors, I'll get this.
Where is he?
Hello. Hello. Thank you for coming to see me today. I know you're all very busy. I appreciate it. I don't know how many there are in the back. But do you want to take one and pass them round? You don't have to. Thanks for coming, guys. My name is James Cook, and I am the grandfather of Birmingham comedy, because that is what a younger comedian called me to my face. They meant it as a compliment. That's the worst thing about it. They meant it as a compliment. They came up, we were at a drinks thing after a show, and they came up to me and they went, "What's great about you, James?" And obviously I hear that and my ears prick up and I'm like, "Oh, hello, here's the compliment coming." I pretend I don't know how to deal with them, but I'm going to enjoy it anyway. And he said, "What's great about you, James, is you're like the grandfather of Birmingham comedy." Yeah. Not father. No. Not even godfather. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? It'd be cool to be the godfather of Birmingham comedy. There's a very big difference between the godfather and the grandfather, isn't there? Those are two very different films, aren't they? If James Brown was the grandfather of song, you'd have a very different act, wouldn't it? It'd be like, "Get up!" "I can't." "Take it to the bridge!" And then I forgot what I've come to the bridge for. The thing is, I'm 47, which I know is technically old enough to be a grandfather, because my grandfather was 44 when he had his first grandchild. But this was said to me by a younger comedian 5 years ago, when I was 42, and I've been festering on it ever since. And I thought what I'll do at the Birmingham Comedy Festival is I'll come and do a show all about my experiences working in comedy and being comedy adjacent on the peripheral of frippery for the last, what feels like 57 years that I've been doing it. So that's what this show is going to be, guys. I'll be honest, I've been doing comedy for a little while. I started at the bottom, and I like it here. And I hope you don't think I'm bragging or showing off, but a vast majority of the shows that I do end up being comedy shows. And that's good, I think, for a comedian, to have most of your shows that end up being a comedy. Sometimes, and it's rare, sometimes it turns out they're spoken word. It's very much on you guys, how you react. If you don't laugh, then fine, it was spoken word. Sometimes, and these are very rare, sometimes it's a staring competition. Sometimes it's a staring competition. So, yeah, I've been involved in comedy a little while. I started on the Birmingham comedy scene back at the turn of the century. Which makes me sound like I'm 400, doesn't it? But it was only 24 years ago, the turn of the century, if we're honest. That's when I started doing comedy, in the year 2000, for reasons. And then I did comedy for a little bit, and then I got waylaid into something else, which I talk about, and I came back. And so I went away in 2004, I kind of stopped doing stand-up, and I came back in 2011. And an incredible thing had happened on the UK comedy circuit in those 7 years. What happened was, everyone got really good. And as a mediocre white landfill, male, fucking straight, middle-aged comedian, that was annoying. Because I started doing comedy at a time where you could be fairly mediocre and sort of get away with it. And then all these good people started. And we're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to try now. That's annoying. And then, when in the before times, back in the noughties, there wasn't really much of a Birmingham comedy scene. There was a little bit of one, but there wasn't much. The acts I considered to be my peers, like the ones who started off about the same time as me, there were 3 of us. Me, a guy called Andy White, and Karen Bailey as well, who's doing her show later today. And we were the 3 sort of all started off about the same time, and they did way better than I did at comedy. And then I went away, and when I came back, there were lots of new comics around Birmingham. And now there have never been more really good comedians in Birmingham, and part of me thinks that's wonderful, but part of me also thinks that's really fucking annoying. Because they've showed up at a time where they're going to frankly usurp me, not at a time when I could have done with their peer support. But there you go. So what happens now is, what I do is I drive around the country swearing at drunk people for money. That's what I do for a job. I'm a road comic, is what I am. So, I make a living by going to gigs and doing gigs, but I've never been on the telly, so no one's ever heard of me. And it's not just me. Incredibly, there are a couple of hundred of us working the circuit every weekend. And how it works is I get in my car on a Saturday, usually about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and then I drive about 2 hours in some direction until I get to the venue, wherever it is. Sometimes it's like a room above a pub like this, sometimes it's like a little art centre or a theatre or like a community hall. Sometimes you go to a village you've never heard of before and it's their annual comedy night in their village hall. And the thing about those gigs is they are fucking brilliant. They're amazing because they're all so delighted that you've come to visit them. And they're running a fucking cheap bar as well. They all walk to it, so they all just get wasted and have the best time. They are so much fun, those gigs. You think, going to a gig in a village in the middle of nowhere, that's not going to be fun. No, they're great. Do you know what the really hard ones are? The ones in cities. Yeah, you lot. Yeah, you're cynical and you're hard-edged and you've got too many options. And you've got like, I could go to the comedy or I could do any of the other billion things I can do that night. They don't have that in villages. You get to the village hall and there's only one way in. There's no stage door. And the way in there'll be someone with a table taking the money, checking the tickets, and there'll be a queue of people going in. And I don't know what to do in that situation when I always just join the queue. It would feel wrong to sort of bar through. I'm a big star, let me through. I'm a white-hot ball of pure entertainment. So I don't do that, I queue up. And then I get to the front of the queue, and the person at the door will say, "Have you got a ticket?" And I take things quite literally, so I always go, "No," because I haven't. And then they go, "Well, it's £12." And I go, "I don't think I have to pay." Who's this prick? And then I go, "Is Stuart here?" Whatever the name on the email was, "Is Stuart here?" "Oh, are you one of the acts?" I'm like, "Yeah, but don't shout it. One of the acts is here!" See all the audience turn around. Oh yeah, that was the artifice of show business. Then you're led into the backstage room, and backstage rooms in village halls, they're amazing, guys. It's like Freddie Mercury's birthday party. Dwarves with a tray of cocaine on their heads. And lemonade, and sometimes we have crisps. And you sit there, and depending on who the other acts are on, you either have a brilliant gossip and a bitch about every other comedian who's not there, or you sit awkwardly as they check their phone the whole time, depending on whether they're under 35 or not. And then what will happen is the venue will continue to go, we're going to start in a minute. And usually I'm comparing. That's because it's a job no one wants to do on the comedy circuit. No one wants to compare. So I figured, well, I'll do that then, because at least I'll be able to pick up work. That's genuinely why. And if you compare, a lot of the time the audience don't realise that you're actually a comedian. They think you're just someone who works at the venue. You laugh, but they're a bit, I'm not having a go. It's a reasonable thing to think. Great. Is it possible to turn these house lights off?
I shall go and do my best.
Yes, thank you, mate. Because the bright lights, they're of my age. And so there's a stereotypical story that comedians tell each other that if you've been the compere and you've done a good job, sometimes audience members will come up to you and as a compliment they'll say, you know, you should have a go at comedy. Like, what did you think, man? You can't say that, so you just go, okay, yeah, maybe, thanks. I mean, the flip side of that is if you've gone on and done an act and someone comes up to you afterwards and goes, maybe you should try comparing. So what, the venue will come along and and they're all volunteers, which is great, because that means they're really enthusiastic. But it's shit, because it also means they're completely incompetent. And there is absolutely no comeback to their incompetence at all. There's no risk they'll be fired, because they're not working for money. You know, they're doing it for free. So you can't tell them off for being shit at their job. It's just like, all those venues are sort of run by very well-meaning but idiotic puppies. And they'll come up and they'll go, oh, we're going to start in a minute. But before you do, Stuart wants to just go up and do a bit of admin before you go on, right? This is the phenomenon of the pre-compare who actually does work for the venue and secretly wants to be a comedian. So they find a way to shoehorn themselves into the lineup without them having to take any of the actual responsibility for the show that comparing it has. So they'll go on, right, and they'll be basically saying, oh, thanks for coming, and the next show, by the way, is on this, and I always think that's presumptuous. It's like, we haven't done this one yet. It might be dog shit. They might not want to come to the next one. And then what they'll do is they'll do like a joke that they've read on the internet, expecting to get a laugh, but it's really, really hard to go on cold. It's the hardest thing to do in comedy is to go on and just start. Lovely! Is to just go on and start. So they'll do the joke that they've read on the internet and it won't get anything and they'll be distraught. And then they'll bring me on. Sometimes they don't even do that. I did one gig up near Stoke and the guy went, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and do a bit of admin before you go on. I went, all right, fair enough. And he goes on and he tells them all about the next shows that are coming up. And he says, so that's the next show, it's going to be on November the 7th. And then he just left. And I was like, do I go on now? No, he didn't introduce me at all. And then I just walk on like I was tidying up. But sometimes, and as I get older, these are the ones I really look forward to. Sometimes I get the email and I see the lineup and there'll be another Birmingham-based comedian on. And then I message that Birmingham-based comedian and I say, do you want a lift to the gig? You know, because obviously, no, better for the environment, yeah? And instead of 2 cars going to the venue, there's only 1 car going. And also, I love car shares with other comics. I love hanging around with other comics. And a car share, they can't get out. So I'm not stopping. And if it's a younger comic as well, that means I get to tell them all my stories. All my stories from the past. It's got so bad that on one car journey, a younger comic during one of my stories said, "Did you have onions tied to your belt?" Which is a reference to Grandpa Simpson. And I went, all right, okay, this is clearly how I'm viewed. As some kind of mad old rambling grandpa with a load of stories. But I've got stories to tell, and that's what this show is, guys. This show's just going to be my comedy stories that I usually say for other comics in the car. So I don't know if it is entertaining for an audience. I don't even know if it's entertaining for other comedians, but I'm going to tell them anyway. So, yeah, so let's start with gigs around Birmingham. So, between 2000 and 2003, I did as many gigs as I could. I would go everywhere. In the time I was working for a big utility company in a big office, working as a portfolio reconciliations analyst. Yeah, that was my job title. What I was actually doing was I was not at all secretly running a comedy club and my own stand-up career from my desk. If your bills went up between 2000 and 2003 for your electricity, I apologise, it was because they were subsidising my early stand-up career. I would do things like, because I could work there, there was some flexible hours. So like if I got in at like 7:30, I could leave at 3:30 and stuff like that. So there'd be days when I get in at 7:30, so it's like 45 minutes from my house. So I'd have left my house at 6:45, I would have driven to work, I would have done a day of sitting at a fucking computer. It would got to 3:30 and I would get into my car immediately. I was on the outskirts of Coventry, and I would immediately drive to the gig I had booked that night, which more often than not was in Plymouth. I would drive the 4 hours to Plymouth. I would get to Plymouth at 7:30 for a show that started at 8 o'clock. I would go on first at 8:10. I would do 20 minutes of stand-up comedy, get paid 70 quid, get back in my car and drive home and arrive home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And that was a Thursday. And I had work the next day. And I would be back in the office at 9 the next day, just mainlining cans of Coke and trying to stay awake through all the meetings. And I did that because I was in my early 20s, so I could do that. But I wanted to do gigs around here, but there weren't that many. I started a couple back then, and some of them went well. One of them's still going under a different guise. Do you know the Fat Penguin in Moseley? Yeah. No. Guys, you've got to get out there. Go and see these independent comic clubs. It's great. Fat Penguin in Moseley. It's a Wednesday night at the Patrick Cavan pub. It's a treat night. It's run by a bloke called Jay, who's a lovely guy. But I ran that back in the start. We had all sorts play that. We had Nicky Flanagan on. We had John Richardson doing an open spot. We had Josie Long. We turned down John Bishop. They offered us, and we went, nah. Russell Howard did it. I knew Russell a little bit when I started. He started off about the same time. But when I started, there were 3 acts on the circuit who I thought, these guys are definitely going to be stars. And they were Russell Howard, Alan Carr, and Pat Monahan. And 2 out of 3 is not a bad one. Russell's clearly brilliant, like a prodigy. And I remember I did some gigs with him. Oh, the first time I ever booked him for a gig in Harborne, the day before, he rang me up and he said, what room's the comedy in? And I said, well, it'll be in the upstairs room. And he went, well, there's no one in there. And I went, that's because it's tomorrow. He showed up a day early. That's how keen he was. And, oh, by the way, there's a fun joke I like to play on other comedians. Just like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, traditionally quiet nights, what I like to do is I'll just text a random comedian with the phrase, "Are you nearby?" Because then they just shit themselves, go, "What gig have I said I've done?" And I go, not really. Oh, there was a thing I was going to do at this, but it was technically awkward. Jimmy Carr does this, and I know another couple of comics have been doing it as well. As people come into the room, they have up on the screen a phone number, and then it says like text a heckle, text your heckle to Jimmy, and he'll deal with it through the show. So people can text in their heckles. And I thought about doing that, but just having like my mate's phone number. And not telling him. like at 1 o'clock on a Sunday, he just gets like 15 random abusive messages. But no, I didn't do it. So yeah, I wanted to do more gigs around here. And there was a guy who ran a gig, a guy called Martin, who ran a gig, and he'd never booked me for his gig. I don't know why. He just took against me, I suppose. So I've got that thing where for a lot of people, I'm not instantly likeable. Right? I can be likeable, but it takes a while, and if you're not willing to put in the hours, you're going to get nothing out of it. Right? And so he just didn't like me. He used to run this is how fucking long ago that was. He used to run a gig at the Jug of Ale. Yeah. No, everyone else is too young. It's the Tipu Sultan now on the Ulster Road. It used to be Jug of Ale, it used to be a music venue, and like all the indie bands of the 90s, they all did gigs. Oasis did a gig there. And then their comedy then was run by this guy called Martin. He never booked me for it. And then one day, out of nowhere, he rang me and said, I've got a gig, do you want to do it? It's like a comparing gig, but you only have to go on at the start and do 20 minutes, and that's it. And it was like a 2-minute walk from where I was living at the time. So I went, yeah, that sounds good. I'm in. And it was like on a Wednesday. And he says, okay, so what it is, I'm running a jazz singles night. I was like, okay. And he's like, so what it's going to be? It's a singles night, but there's going to be a jazz band. You know, like singles like. And I thought it'd be good to have a comedian on as well. And obviously, if you say that to me now, if I want to do that now, just fucking red flags are going off. You cannot mix comedy and music like that. It never works. People who go to see music have got a very different mindset than people who go to see comedy. They're often the same people, but they're in a different mindset. And that does make a difference. Also, musicians are the worst people in the world. They show up late, they've got no sense of humour, and they steal your extension leads. But at the time I was like, yes, it's a gig, like a walk from my house. Yes, I'll do that. That sounds like a laugh. So I show up to do it, and I look around at the audience as I'm about to go on, and it's 6 blokes. And I think to myself, I hope they're gay. Otherwise they're not getting anything out of this singles night, are they? And part of me's thinking, surely Martin's going to cancel this. But he went, no, go on, off you go. So I have to go on and compare. When you compare, what you sometimes do is you like have a little chat with the front row. And I know you all think that's because we're trying to destroy you. We're not. It's just a way of building up a rapport with the audience. 99 times out of 100, the comedian doing that is just trying to make a connection. They're not trying to have a go. But fucking YouTube is full of videos of people getting one over at people, calling the front row a nonce. That's where comedy is now. So I went on and I said to one guy, oh, hey, how do you do? What's your name? And he tells me, and I go, what do you do, mate? And he says, I play the trumpet in a jazz band. And I say to the other blokes, are you the jazz band that's coming on? And they went, yep. And I went, well, I hope you don't mind playing to an empty room, because I'm not sticking around. I did my time, I got my money, and I fucked up. Who knows what the jazz band did? Practice, I suppose. So there was that. Also, oh god, I ran a gong show once. Do you know what a gong show is? Right, so the concept of the gong show is it's all new acts. They come on, and if the audience don't like them, they get gonged off. Yeah, right. So how that works logistically, because they do it at the Comedy Store. It's quite a well-known show. They have at the Comedy Store, and other places do it as well. We decided we were going to put on a gong show because it was basically a cheap night. But we only charged £3 in, so we thought that was fair. So how it works logistically is you give 5 members of the audience glow sticks, and you tell them, if you don't like the act, put the glow stick in the air. Right? If there are ever 3 glow sticks up at any one time, we gong the act off. Right? If they can make it to 5 minutes without being gonged off, they beat the gong, they get through to the final. All right, and all the acts know that's the deal as well. We didn't have a gong. We had a tea tray and a spoon. We had a tea tray, bang, 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 clang. That was how we were going to gong people up. So we're sitting there, and I was running it with this other guy, and we're going, well, how many acts should we book for the gong show? All right. This was before smartphones. We had to actually build all the special effects back then. We didn't know how many people to book on because potentially every act could be off within the first 30 seconds, and then there's no show really. So we were like, well, it's going to average out, isn't it, at about 2.5 minutes per act. So we figured 2 halves. 10 acts in each half. Some will be good, some will be shit. It's the nature of it. So we booked 20 comedians, and they show up. And this was in King's Heath. We do the thing, and we do get a decent sized audience in, probably about this many people actually. We give out the glow sticks, and I go on compare. I explain how it's going to work. I go, is everyone cool with that? And I'm great. All right, please welcome to the stage. First act. First act comes on and does okay. It's hard to go on first, and they do okay. They do pretty well. And no glow sticks go up. I think they liked him. And so they were like, oh, okay, we'll see. And then he gets to the 5 minutes. Hooray, he got to the 5 minutes. Clap, 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 clap. Congratulations, mate. You're into the final. What a great start to the show that is. And then we get the second act on. And the second act comes on. And it's dog shit. Awful. Nervous. Doesn't know what they're doing. Fucks up their jokes. No glow sticks go up. Me and my mate were looking, going, what's going on? This is really bad though. And you can see the tension in an audience when an act's doing badly, and everyone knows, and no one wants to say anything. Which, by the way, is why we don't like hecklers in comedy. It's not heckling per se, it's that hecklers have got very, very bad timing. Hecklers will very rarely heckle a... Case in point. A heckler will never actually heckle an act who's doing badly, which is what they should do, because everyone feels awkward when an act's doing badly. No one wants to draw attention to it. What the hecklers will do is they will heckle an act who's doing well, which just is jarring, and that's why. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, no one got this cunt off, right? And he gets to the. Thank you for laughing at the C word. Turns out you're my audience. Gets to 5 minutes in. Oh, they've beaten the gong as well. They're through to the final. I come back on and I go, by the way, remember if you've got a glow stick and you're not enjoying the act, just put your glow stick on the end and we'll gong them off and get the next act on. And everyone goes, okay, fine. And it just kept happening. It didn't matter how well the act did. They kept beating the gong. So after 6 or 7, I went on and went, what is going on? And one of the people with the glow stick said, we've paid £3. Which is the most brummy fucking reaction. We've paid £3. We don't care if it's awful. We want the maximum amount of show. In the end, 16 acts got to the final. We finished at 1 in the morning. Oh, right. Look, some of these, I'm glad you've enjoyed the story so far. Some of them are going to be not funny, but hopefully interesting. There was, of course, the time when we were all involved in blatant money laundering. Yes! Should I name names here?
No. Please don't, because I was involved too. Not involved with money laundering, but involved to help.
It's not our fault, I would argue.
No,
it's not our fault.
He's still a good mate.
Yeah, but it's not his fault either.
No.
Really. No. So a local promoter friend of mine rings me up and says, we've got a deal to put on comedy in a venue on Broad Street that used to be a jazz bar but isn't anymore. And is something else, and despite the name, is nothing to do with lettuce or space travel. And I went, oh. that sounds a bit grubby, because that is essentially a pole dancing bar. I'm not having a go, I'm not kink shaming, but that in comedy doesn't really go. And he was like, no, this is going to be a totally different thing, because what will happen is this will be on before it becomes the thing it is later at night, because our show's going to finish at 9:30, yeah? And inside, it's still set up like the jazz club. There's just a pole in the middle of the stage. And I was like, I'm still not sure. And he said, have you done Covent Garden Comedy Club? Okay, so Covent Garden Comedy Club, which is never in Covent Garden, used to be in Heaven. You know the gay club Heaven down in Charing Cross in London, right? Before it opened as Heaven in like 10 o'clock at night, they had a comedy night in there called the Covent Garden Comedy Club. It was like a separate thing, but using the same venue. So he explained it to me that it's going to be like that. Yeah, it's going to be this, it's us when it's then, and then it stops, and then it becomes the other thing after, so it's fine. And I went, all right, I'll do it. And I'm down to compare the opening night. And the lineup's really good, it's really good circuit acts on. And I show up, and there's no signs or anything around the venue that there's going to be comedy on at all. And I'm going, okay, that's a bit of a weird sign. Surely they put up a sign saying comedy tonight. No, nothing like that. Go into the room, and it's completely empty. It's a little table with the other comics and me. And we can sit there and we just talk, and it gets to show start time and there's no one in there. So we're going, well, this isn't going to happen. We're going to get paid off, which is the best possible gig. Seriously, my favourite ever gig was the gig I did where I drove to Walsall. I saw the promoter standing outside the venue. I was in the car, he beckoned me over, I wound the window down, he went, yeah, they've double booked the venue, you'll still get paid, and I came immediately home. That was the best thing. So we thought, oh, we're going to get paid off. And then the booker comes over to the table and he goes, guys, they want you to start. And we went, there's no one in here. He went, the owner's going to go and get some people and sit in the front row. The owner goes and gets a couple of the staff, you know the staff members who will be there later that night? A couple of them, they weren't ready yet. So they're in rollers and dressing gowns. Yeah, there's about 4 of them and the bloke who owns the place. They come and sit in the front row and they're like, do the show. And I have to go on and start the show, and we all of us did our time, and to be fair, we all got paid that night, and everything, and so we get through it somehow, and the next day, the booker, my mate, rings me, and I go, well, I guess you're going to be pulling the rest of them, and he says, well, the thing is, they paid us for the entire 14-show run, and they wanted to go ahead. So I'm just going to tell all the acts what it is, and then if they want to pull, that's fine. So he got in touch with all the acts they booked for this 14-show run to say, there'll be no one in. You have to do your time. You'll get paid on the night. If you want to pull, we understand. And out of 14 shows worth of acts, 2 acts pulled. I did it again. I did it again. And my favourite moment, that show was being closed by a guy called Sean Percival. Have you ever seen Sean? He's from Dudley. He looks like an old rocker. Yeah? He's got a Dudley face. He looks like an old rocker. He was on last, and when he was doing his thing, he was the only person I ever saw in there that touched the pole. And he was hanging off the pole like this, doing his jokes like that. And what was brilliant was about 8 blokes who were clearly there too early for the next show walked in, took one look at Sean hanging off the pole, and fucked off. Oh man, I'm not getting through any of these things. All right. But back in the and it was going all right. I was a very different comedian in the early noughties because I was in my 20s and I mean, if you think I'm arrogant now, oh God, you should see me back then. I had material then that I would never dream of doing now. All this kind of fake edgelordy shit because I was trying to be cool and impress people, you know. But it was going all right. I did a competition. There was a competition, Jonglers New Act of the Year competition in 2003. It was at the Jongleurs on Broad Street, which is now Rosie's. And a bunch of us were in it. Karen was in it, Andy was in it as well, and a couple of the other local acts were on. We wanted to do 5 minutes, and then there was a judging panel, and the best one gets through to the final at the Edinburgh Festival. And they do a random draw to decide the running order, and Andy White got drawn first in the running order, and I got drawn last in the running order. And had it been the other way round, the result of that show would have been reversed, because we both had really good gigs, but because I was on last, when people were a bit drunker, a bit more warmed up, they adjudged me to be the funniest person on the bill. That's how competitions work. They're awful in a lot of ways. I've done a lot of competitions where I haven't fucking won, by the way. And you come away, even if you've had a good gig, you come away going, no, I'm just shit at this. And it's like, well, did you have a good gig or not? It doesn't really matter. So I got through, and I got through, and I had a routine at the time. This was 2003. So you have to bear in mind that this was edgy and topical stuff at the time. I had a routine, and I would never do this routine. I had a routine about the allegations that had been made about former Blue Peter presenter John Leslie. Yeah. I don't remember exactly, it was something along the lines of, there are so many women have come forward now that the Blue Peter totaliser has had to come out. And they're going, well, we're currently at 20 allegations, but if we get to number 30, we're going to buy someone a dialysis machine. Hey, do you remember when the Blue Peter garden got trashed? Yes, because John Leslie raped it. I'd never do that joke now. No, John, we said rape the garden. See, I'd never do that joke now, but I did back then. And it went well in the room, and I won the competition. And I got to go to Edinburgh that year, the Edinburgh Festival 2003, to be in the grand final, alongside the other regional winners from around the country, which included Rod Gilbert. Ooh. Yeah, how about that? Rod Gilbert was in it. Other acts I really liked, Seymour Mace was in it. Ria Lina, who's done loads of TV recently, she was there. And a brilliant act called Rohan Aglawata, who gave up comedy but wrote one of the best jokes I've ever seen, which is a unicorn and a cyclops. That's an accident waiting to happen. Right? It's just a great joke. Anyway, there was 8 of us in this competition, and we all get flown up there, we all get put up. And then we go on to do it. And in the running order, I'm on, it's like 2 halves of 4, and I'm on first after the break, which is a really good position. And I go, well, I'll do the routine that I did in the heat, because it was good enough to win the heat. I'll do that again here. And I did it, and in the room, it went pretty well. And I thought, I think I'm in with a chance here. Maybe not to win, but maybe runner up. You know, there were other acts who had good gigs as well. Basically, Rod Gilbert. Everyone thought Rod was going to win, right? And I thought, well, I think I'm going close, you know. And they get to the end, they do, right, we've got the judge's decision here. The runner-up, the Jongleurs' new act, competition 2003, is Rod Gilbert. Oh, I thought, we all thought he was going to win. And I'm thinking, shit, this could be me. And he goes, the winner is Anthony J. Brown. Anthony J. Brown is an incredibly capable comedian of whom I'm very fond. And I went, shit. Yeah, I thought I had that. What went wrong? And then one of the organisers came up to me and said, did you know that one of the judges was John Leslie's brother? And I said, no. That would have been useful information to have had. He must have thought I was the biggest idiot in the fucking world. Honestly. So, how are we doing for time? Alright, okay. There are 2 stories I can tell you. There's a story I can tell you that I've told a bunch of times and I know is fun. And there's a story that I've told a handful of people I've never told on stage before, and I didn't tell anyone it for 30 years after it happened. Which one do you want?
Second one.
All right, Rachel. So people want to know a bunch of things when you're a comedian. The questions you get asked are, what happens when it goes wrong? No one laughs. There you go. Second thing is, what was your first gig? I've got lots of different stories about very different first gigs. But if I'm honest, I can tell you about my first gig. August 1988. I was 11, and me and my family were staying at Pontins at Barton Hall in Cornwall. That was our summer holiday that year, a week in Pontins. They put me and my brother, my younger brother, in the kids club for the week. God knows what my parents did. I don't like to think about it, if I'm honest. And me and my brother Ed, we threw ourselves wholeheartedly into all the activities that were going on. We joined in with everything and just tried to have a laugh while we were there. This was the summer between primary school and big school for me. And so there were various competitions. My brother dressed for the fancy dress, he dressed up as Vivian from The Young Ones, and he won, that was great. And then on the Friday, like the last day of the holiday, there was a talent competition, and I was like, I might enter that. I'm gonna go, I might enter it. Like that, talent competition for the kids. And I go along, and the other acts that I can remember, there were more than just two others, but the ones I remember was, there were two other brothers, who were like the bizarro me and my brother from down south somewhere, and their act they stripped to the waist, and then they did like handstands and forward rolls for a bit. That was their act, and then there was the girl that I fancied, who sang "Nothing's Going to Change My Love for You" by Glenn Medeiros over a backing track of that song. I remember her. Oddly, and then I thought I'm going to go on and do comedy because I loved comedy when I was a kid. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but they introduced me and I walked on and I did, as best as I could remember, a comedy routine that I'd seen on kids' TV, a TV show called On the Waterfront. It was on Saturday mornings when Going Live wasn't on. In the summer. It was a routine that the comedy magician Andrew O'Connor had done, that I had videotaped and learnt. So I thought I'll do that. Oh, he now writes for Derren Brown, Andrew O'Connor, fun fact. So I did that, and then I acted out one of my favourite scenes from Fawlty Towers. It's like doing all the voices, or at least the best an 11-year-old boy can. And fuck, what am I telling people? And at the end they go, well done, you've won. They gave me a little medal, which I still have. Yeah, and they said, you've qualified for the grand final. Oh, where's that? It says, well, the infrastructure of the room doesn't want me to finish this story. But, I said, oh, where's that? And they go, it's going to be at there's a big Pontins in Kent, like the main one. And at the end of the season, we do like the kids' talent competition grand final, all the winners of the talent competitions, they come and they do a thing. And I was like, okay, cool. What I didn't realise is that wasn't free. Right, my parents had to pay for us to go to that weekend. And they had to take time off work for us to do it. Because I just went, I've won and I'm in the final. Didn't give them the option. I said, I am in the final. We're going to the final. And, but they were delighted. They weren't there at the talent competition. They were, oh God knows. So then they said, what did you do? I said, I did some comedy. And they went, oh, good. All right, we'll do that then. And it was, we had to take a day off school as well, because it was like end of September. And we go down to this place in Kent. And in the build-up to it, my dad had said to me, do you know what you're going to do in your act in the final? And basically, because in the heat I just winged it and got away with it, I think I just thought I'd do that again. But I didn't want to say that to my dad, so I just went, yes. And I would argue, yeah. That my dad. I'd argue that my dad at that point should have said, what are you going to do in the final? Rather than just going, okay, I will take this 11-year-old known liar's word for it. And then he said, do you want me to get you any props for your act? Bearing in mind, I didn't know what I was going to do. I said, yes. He said, what do you want? I said, well, here's what I would like. I would like a bow tie on the end of a stick, please. He said, is that all? I said, no. I would also like the lyrics to the song Car Wash printed off as big as you can print them at your work. My dad worked with computers in 1988. You know the old computer paper that had those green lines on it and the holes up and down the side? Yeah, he used to have loads of that. So, and bless him, he did. He made me a bow tie on a stick, and he printed off as big as he could the lyrics to Car Wash. Because in my head, I had gone, well, I'll probably act out the Fawlty Towers sketch again. And if I've got a bow tie on a stick, like when I hold that up, people will know that I am being Manuel. Because nothing about my performance will give them a clue that that's what it is. And the lyrics to Car Wash, because, well, I liked quite traditional comedy that was like mainstream BBC One comedy at the time. Every comedian I'd seen finished on a song. So I thought I was going to finish with the song Car Wash, and I was going to get everyone to join in. Now, the thing is, Car Wash isn't even one of my favourite songs. I have no idea why I picked it. But that's what was in my head as we drove down to Kent. And we get there and they go, right, what happens is there's a heat on the Saturday, so like all the singers are in a heat, and all the magicians are in a heat, and all the acrobats are in a heat, and all the comedians are in a heat, and then we pick one from each heat and they go into the grand final the next day. All right, and they go, before your heat, right, there's a chance for you to go and meet with the piano player if you've got any musical cues. And I went, I've got a musical cue. Great. So I go and meet with the piano player and he says, what do you want? And I say, can you play Car Wash by Rose Royce? A song that has no piano in it. At all. And he goes, oh really? And I go, oh, I could just try and do it a cappella. I then tried to sing Car Wash a cappella in front of the piano player, my mom, the other comedians and their parents. It did not go well. So I abandoned that. And my mom said to me afterwards, I'm going to go and tell the organisers that what you're doing is more of a comedy drama. Thanks, Mom. Thanks. So I'm going to probably do the Fawlty Towers bit. I have no idea what else I'm going to do. It comes to the heat. One of the other comedians who was on, and he wasn't, but he was a Russell Howard type. You know, an incredibly confident, smiley, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, right? And he was a good laugh. And for some reason, in my head now, he's Russell Howard. He wasn't. And what I remember about his act, he was about 11. He went on a Saturday afternoon in front of 200 moms and dads and their kids at this event, and he told the following joke. Strap in, guys. Give me an A. A. Give me an I. I. Give me a D. D. Give me an S.
Yes.
What have you got? He told that joke in 1988. The height of the fucking AIDS epidemic. Hey, you can't tell jokes like that anymore, can you? Without getting cancelled. I remember the time thinking, fucking hell. At least I didn't do that. Because I went on and just died a monumental death. I I don't know what I ended up saying. I tried to do the 40 Towers thing, it didn't work. Left to the sound of my own footsteps. Aged 11. And apparently years later I found out that later that day my parents took my brother to one side and said to him, "We never talk about this again." And you know what? They never have. Seriously, they never have. Even when we get together now, me and my brother are in our fucking 40s, right? Even when we get together now and we reminisce about, oh, you remember when this happened and all that, they never mention that. I have never brought this up, and the first time I told another human being about it was 3 years ago. In a car share on the way back from a gig in Connecticut to another comedian. And I was in fucking tears telling them, of laughter, by the way. So, that's why I like telling comics stories in cars. It helps me deal with the trauma. It explains a lot, that story. Yeah? Oh, I haven't really got enough time to get into other stuff. So I hope you've found this entertaining or interesting. That was kind of the point. I didn't really know how it was going to go. I had done no preparation at all. I was going to act out a scene from 40 Towers, if I'm honest. I just knew I wanted to tell some stories, and I wrote lists of stories I wanted to tell, and I've told some of them, and I hope you found them enjoyable. There are more shows in here throughout the day, and also in the Victoria as well. 8 shows across the day. They're all like this, free to get in, you pay what you think on the way out. We do annoyingly have to ask you to leave the room during the show because the next show has like a big tech setup that we've got to figure out how to do in here. But that's Eric and Arnold, and that'll be a terrific show if you want to come see that. Or there's other shows at the thing. It's great that you come and support this half-day area event. It's like we did it 10 years.
About that, yeah.
Done it a little while now, and it's great to see it growing like this. So look, as a tradition at the end, I stand at the door there with Craig with a bucket. And my phone, which can take card payments, as you try and avoid contact with me. But all I say is this: if you would buy me a pint for telling you all these stories, pints in here cost a £5. That's what I'm saying. So, bung in a £5, that'd be great. If you want to put in a tenner, also great. I will not stop you. If you put in 20 quid, I'll be really motivated next time. If you genuinely can't afford to pay, then that's fine too, because part of the half days is that it's free to get in so that it's accessible for everyone. And if you can't afford to pay, then the people who can afford to pay, they're paying for you. And that's, I think, how this should work. Cheers very much for coming. I'm
Some of the work gets kinda hard, and this ain't no place to be if you plan on being a star. Let me tell you, it's always cool, and the boss don't mind sometimes if you act the fool at the car wash. Whoa, 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 talking about the car wash, yeah. Come on, y'all, and sing it for me.